Hey, what's up? Welcome back to another awesome episode of Life in Air Show podcast. On the Life in Air Show, we help businesses and individuals and investors create amazing lives and ways to support those lives financially. And I am joined by Polish Peter, my co-host. My name is Jason Wojo. And on this episode, dude, we have a super cool guest. His name's Heri Chiragi. And he is a social media expert, man. And he's going to talk to us about how we can embrace and capitalize on social media marketing in our businesses.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because social media is so important in today's world. I mean, it's part of our lives if we really think about it. So maybe on this episode, he's going to give us some tips to polish me up a little bit. So
polish you up or polish you up?
Polish me up, polish me up. I think it's more like polishing up, polishing up this Polish guy. All right. So, yeah, listen, I want you guys to listen to this particular episode because we'll ask him a lot of tactical questions, right? Because I think a lot of business owners are dealing with when should I post? How often should I post? And how long before the results? And should I comment? Should I not comment? And should I do A, B, C, or D? Do I need professional sound studio? And all those kinds of things. So not only that, but we dive a little bit deeper into some of those social media conversations and misconceptions I think will help you out tremendously.
Dude, I love this conversation because we cover things, not only we start off at a high level, we get very tactical down in the weeds and some things to make this really practical and usable for you. And I also love that we discuss like what is working in 2025, because the same things that were working just a year or two ago, that's pivoted, that's changed. And so to be abreast and aware of all the most recent changes on the platforms, like this is an awesome episode. Dude, let's get into it now. Here's our interview with Heri Chiragi. Heri, what's up, man? Welcome to the Life in a Show. Glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So I am super excited because, as you know, one of Life in Air's main initiatives in terms of our marketing over this past several months, and we're looking forward to doing this much more seriously in the future, is social media marketing. And this is such an important topic, I think, for a lot of businesses, and getting front and center, getting visibility, getting eyeballs on your business, and regardless of which way you do that, is one of the key things that you have to consider as a business owner, because if nobody knows about your product or offering, like, you have no chance of selling anything. So like, why don't we kind of dive in and even start like with this general theme of like, why does social media marketing matter? Why is it important? Why is it something that businesses should consider looking into, either hiring somebody or doing themselves even?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is it's just an efficient way of communication. So unlike having to rely on one-to-one conversations with prospects and contacts, you can actually then talk to people in a one-to-many format. So, for example, this video we're making here, we're only going to film it once. Depending on how much we botch this up, there might be a lot of editing or not. But afterwards, what will happen is that people can now watch and consume you, whether you're asleep, whether you're awake, and it works for you. And you can then start to answer questions like, here's what I do, here's who I help, and here's what working for me looks like.
And so are there businesses that you feel like are not, who are the businesses that you feel would benefit most from social media marketing, and who are the businesses, or what kind of businesses would you feel like, it's not going to be quite your thing and it wouldn't be quite as valuable?
Yeah, so I think it tends to be high ticket definitely benefits from social media because they need to be able to communicate that value and the benefits of working with them. Both product and services tend to do quite well. The ones where I say perhaps don't need as much of a need, just being quite candid, is more your perhaps super local corner store, right? So like mom and pop shop, bread, milk, eggs. They've got that loyal audience who are local. And in that instance, probably not as much to gain with social media presence, but even for them, something like a Google My Business review, just so they have a digital footprint. So if someone's in the area and looking for a shop, they can easily find you. That would still be beneficial. And Google Business isn't even something I do, by the way. So no kind of skin in the game for that. But for that type of person, that's what would be perhaps useful.
And so what are the services that you actually provide? Like, I'm curious, like, so that you can give us people an idea of some of the things they themselves might be responsible for if they choose to do this themselves or hire like an agency.
Yeah. So it starts off from content creation. So providing the actual ideas of what they can say. So some clients of mine will need me for video. So I help with the scripts, They'll then film it, and I help with the post edit, the adding of captions, and getting that distributed on social media platforms. For other people, they're even more hands off. They say, hey, you don't even need to give me a video. I can just create designs and posts from like a library of images, as well as then the reporting and the optimization of everything as well.
Dude, that sounds like a lot. And I guess this is why, you know, I do want to at some point get into a discussion of like, when does it make sense for business to hire somebody versus do it themselves? But like, let's make this tactical for the people who want to kind of maybe give this a shot on their own, or want to know more about really what's involved in creating a social media presence, I guess, if that's what you would call it. So can you talk a little bit about some of the specifics and like tips and some of the, you know, steps involved in creating social media marketing, and some of the, maybe even the time commitment and what someone should expect to do, because certainly, you know, people's expectations could be way off as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So when advising business owners, I try and focus on like the 20% that will give them 80% of the results. So I say aim for 2 to 3 posts a week. So don't try and sprint and overdo it for yourself. The cadence I would typically recommend is a post on Sunday after the weekend, and then a post on Wednesday midweek. In terms of time set aside, you probably want to be aiming for about, well, I'd actually encourage people, if they can, to just do, let's say, 5 hours up front and then do the content for the whole month. Because long term, that would actually be quicker for you to do than trying to do an hour here and there week to week.
So let me interrupt you right now, man, because like this is something, and I just want to be fully transparent. Like Life and Air has done a poor job overall of really like establishing a social media presence. Like the way Life and Air has grown has been us going to speak to investor groups or business groups, and we've had almost zero online digital presence. And so we're behind the eight ball on this. We're trying to catch up now. And so this is something that, you know, I want to encourage people to really consider if this is something that you want to do, rather than wait or put it off. Now, in regards to the time, man, like that's such an important tip, because I think so many business owners already have enough on their plate and they're trying to figure out how to fit this in. And I'm talking to myself here too, by the way, like how to fit this in and how to really think about social media marketing, not as another to-do item, as like, oh, this is the one more thing I got to do. But rather like, I almost think of it like as an investment. And I love your time blocking thing, and you're investing in maybe a future return, based on, not maybe somebody doesn't watch it today, but like you said before, is maybe you're front of mind. So in 3 months, when they decide they want to make an investment into this or start providing more content like that, now that person already knows who you are. You have some FaceTime. So I think thinking of an investment, number one, and I love the time blocking suggestion. That is something that I have not done as much as I should have. So like, this is a good reminder for me too, man.
Yeah, yeah, it's useful. And yeah, I think to that point as well, around you never know who's watching. Like I've had it where I've had collateral where people bring up stuff in my videos that I don't even remember saying, but it's actually helped them build trust and actually just smoothing out the sales cycle too. So definitely worth doing.
So what does somebody actually post? Like this is something that like I had a lot of fear around, like, what am I going to talk about? Like, so give me some ideas of like what people can discuss so that they have an idea of like what they're going to actually like present to the world.
So what I find with a lot of business owners is that they actually just hate talking about themselves, like, because that operators that I want to be in the business, not talking about it. I don't get it. I don't want to learn how to dance, right? Or whatever they think they need to do. And what I actually encourage them to do is start off with the basics and just talk about your clients, because that's probably where you're going to feel comfortable. It's in your comfort zone, and you can talk about testimonials, case studies, if there's like physical before and afters, images or videos of work you've done for people. That tends to always perform well. And that can just help you get your foot in the water, get accustomed to it, and not feel like you're too exposed and putting yourself out there. Then once you get comfortable with that, and you're also building credibility on the side, you can then think about thought leadership. So if you're a plumber, for example, you can give tips around, what are common reasons for pipes getting blocked and what some actual things that people can do themselves, like even calling a plumber out, because that will just help build credibility for you. And then the three main categories I see are promotional, educational, and then like human relatable content. So as long as you then have those three categories, you're getting a nice variety.
Dude, you know what just struck me is like, and social media is so good for this is, especially today where I feel like there's not only does it seem like there's a bazillion different businesses in every, I mean, like for instance, we have an HVAC issue right now and we've had literally like 4 or 5 people come out. But the ability to connect with someone and build trust through, like you mentioned, like educational, like is such a valuable piece of this business marketing puzzle because like you're showing not only, I think, listen, if you're showing somebody how to fix a problem that you're not benefiting, like you're not charging them for anything, like you are showing them that you want to help. And I just feel like that's such a valuable thing. And of course, trust is built by exposure as well. So like the consistency aspect is just being reinforced for me right here and now. So like when you talk about other success stories, because the proof that you can help people, when you try to educate people, when you're showing them that you're showing up and you're building that kind of like, front of mind positioning, like it just, this is all kind of clicking for me as you're explaining it.
Yep. And I just tell people, just start small. Don't feel like you have to be amazing and polished from day one. Just start small. And the reason why you as the business owner can even afford to help these people for free is, again, that one-to-many effect. It's not a case of you use that video, it disappears and that work's gone. You can then use that again and again later on.
So yeah, it's a really good point that you just brought up. So I got a question for you because just popped into my head as you were talking. Don't need to be polished, right?
Polished or polished?
Either one. I guess it doesn't matter. It could be either polished or polished. I mean, I'm neither. I'm Polish, but yeah. But listen, but here's the thing. I think a lot of times people are struggling with doing social media because they feel like it needs to be perfect, needs to be professional, needs to be, script. I need to, right? There is a need to do something. Talk to us a little bit about, in today's world, we're in 2025. And is the polished look work, or is it depending on the business, or is it kind of off the cuff, or what's important right now? Is it authenticity? What are we talking about here?
Good question. There's definitely been a shift in recent trends toward authenticity, I'd say. Like people want to relate to people. But in terms of equipment though, and the actual tangibles of what it looks like, any smartphone, whether it's an iPhone or an Android with a decent camera and a Bluetooth mic worth $20 is enough to give you what you need. I actually had a client today who I had to give him feedback to say, your audio is not that great. And I gave him a link and he was like, oh, I'm surprised because I'm spending like a $500 wireless mic that I'm using. And the quality still wasn't even that great. So basics, good mic, good smartphone. If you really want get fancy, there's like a $20 tripod you can use as well, but that's optional and that's more than enough to give you what you need.
Okay, what about like the talking? Do I need to be professional sounding? Like, is it more of like, let's just have a conversation. Let me share my case story. Right? I just walked out of this house and I had this experience with this client, and here's what I found out. What do you see like it's working right now in 25?
I would say talk to the camera like the way you talk to a prospect or contact. So the way your typical ICP, like ideal customer profile, and how they talk and what they respond to, that's the way you should be on camera. And of course, just be yourself because then it will just make you more relatable.
I love that. Look at you. You're not just a pretty face. You know what you're talking about. Okay. So listen, so here's the thing. So now being relatable, you mentioned the ICP, so your ideal client. So you should probably be aware of who you're talking to, right? Now, would you say that in your mind, as you were talking to this client, you should be picturing who you're talking to? Like the way I envision it is like, whoever my perfect client is, in my head, I'm envisioning talking to that specific person, even though it's Instagrams or TikToks or whatever it might be, to be able to go and talk to them. How do you talk to us about that?
Yeah, a framework that I've learned and I think what is really helpful, and also just I think it makes business owners understand like where the ROI of social media can come in, is basically map out your sales journey of what your client would have to go through to buy from you. And then basically just make content on every single part of that sales journey and address the objections they might have, address the buying decisions they might have to make, how they'll have to compare you to competitors. And that gives you plenty of content to work with, and also just helps you address objections preemptively before you even speak to them.
Nice. Okay. So your sales journey, literally, you can, do 20, 30 videos, little short videos or whatever, long videos, and answers all the objections. So then it helps you actually with your sales, sounds to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So talk to me about, we're in 25, and I still see a lot of people talking about social media doesn't work. And I think there is a misconception about this, because I think they feel like needs to happen. I don't know. They have some expectations, right, of how it needs to go. So do you see any kind of expectation that business owners, entrepreneurs put when it comes to social media that's actually hurting them to be able to go, like, for instance, I'm putting up this video and it should be, more people should watch it, right? How long is it going to take? It's going to take me like 5 months, or, those kinds of things. So what are some of the mistakes that business owners make when it comes to expectations that actually has them fall short into the social media success?
For sure. So one thing is management of expectations and them actually being aligned to what works right now. So thinking in terms of months and years rather than just days and weeks is what I'd first say. There's also been some recent shifts in social media whereby, one, it is a bit more pay to play. So particularly on Meta, of like Facebook and Instagram, like boosting your posts just helps you get in front of more initial eyeballs and get that traction. But even before even spending money, too, what I notice is the platforms really encourage engagement. So, and what I mean by engagement is, in that social media platform that you're hosting, do you go and comment on other people's posts? Do you interact? Do you like on things? And as that's got more and more important, I've realized that business owners are the exact same people to completely neglect that, right? Because if they catch a moment, they'll just about do the content, but they won't even do the engagement stuff. So you need to be thinking about engagement, regular posting, and then also thinking about in terms of months at least, and not just days and weeks.
Okay, so long game, thinking months as opposed to days. And then me as a business owner, you're saying to go and comment on other people's videos?
And I wish I had a better answer, but genuinely from what I've seen with like tests and experiments in my business, doing it across like 20 people now, yeah, that definitely makes a serious difference.
Now, are we talking about videos related to my industry, my subject matter, or just random, doesn't matter?
Yeah, good to clarify. It's ones that are related to you, because what you want to do is engaging with audiences who are likely to have an overlap interest in what you do. So if you're a plumber, to go back to that example, you then interact with the followers of other plumbers and not just something completely unrelated.
So me as a business owner sounds like I'm helping the competitor. You know what I mean? Because I'm talking to them, or so like, I'm trying to put myself. What's that?
Yeah. So it's the follower of that person. So if anything, you're kind of almost pinching the attention versus. Yeah.
Okay, glad you mentioned that, clarified that, because, think about this. A lot of business owners think about, competition, right? And now I'm going to go to their videos and I'm going to comment on I don't want to do that, right? So when you start to clarify some of those things, maybe posting, and I wouldn't say like post, because here's the other thing that I find a lot of times on social media is that people go in there and they almost like spam post, right? They put like, come see my business, or I'll give you this free, session. And it just, to me, sounds, I don't know, maybe it's my own perspective, but it sounds like they're spamming the post and people are not going to react to that.
I'm so glad you brought that up because it's rife, especially with AI adoption. I think that's just increased. I said I wanted to make this as valuable as possible, so I will. So this is what I've actually been doing with existing clients, and it's worked really well to grow a LinkedIn business page. We using like an AI chatbot, we uploaded a document with that tone of voice, case study, how they speak, that target audience, etc.
Okay.
We then use that to feed the that chatbot so it knows and sounds like that business. From there, there's a couple gotchas of certain words that AI tends to use that no human being actually uses. And also that long dash that it weirdly does that again, no one actually uses in their day-to-day life. So you then add prompts to prevent it from using that, which immediately makes it sound more human. And then because they're part of my agency, what we did, a member of my team then used that chatbot to then engage, add relevant content at scale on their behalf to get in front of more people. But if you're trying to do this yourself, then you could just train an AI chatbot and that would just make you quicker at engaging.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from that is, and I would like to keep things simple because like Vojo mentioned, I am Polish. So keep things simple is like there is a way of using AI to basically help you engage with more people on a mass scale with the AI comments and things like that.
Correct. But then you just have to be very intentional with the parameters around it so that it actually sounds valuable, human, and not just spam.
Like you. Okay. So let me ask you this. Do you think that the AI, because it's growing at like crazy speeds now, and so I'm sitting as a business owner, I think a lot of business owners still not clear or even know what the AI does and how it's helping and everything. Do you think that AI is going to be helping social media or is it going to be hurting it?
It depends how well executed. I think anyone who's a subject matter expert or has spent years like learning that craft will realize that when you use AI, the first draft is always a little bit generic, a little bit kind of just obvious. I like to call it like almost just wiki answers. If you ever used that back in the day, you just got really basic advice. Like I feel that's what AI is out the box. And it's people who are thought matter experts who can like prompt it, adjust it, and know what good looks like are the ones who can then use AI in ways where people don't even realize it's AI because it's been well crafted. People who just copy and paste a template and hope for the best, it's going to hurt them.
So I want to bring it back for a couple of things you said, Heri, that I want to unpack. So I have two questions. The first one is like we talked about knowing your customer, knowing your client. How does that influence where you post? Because we have dozen platforms. How do you recommend posting? Because I've heard two schools of thought of this. One is like, hey, I'm just going to post on Facebook or I'm just going to post on Instagram. And I'm just going to go deep there. And other perspectives are like, no, you can kind of reuse posts on multiple platforms. And so which approach, number one, do you prefer? And then number two is, how do you know where your clients are? Like what kind of advice would you have for people trying to figure that out?
Yeah. So I'd say ask your clients or stalk them. So let's say if you're right.
Just look their name up on Facebook or whatever and keep their profile.
Yeah. Try and get people into trouble. Like, Heri, I followed your advice. And
I'm in jail right now. Thanks a lot, Heri.
They can make social media out of the prison cell, right? I mean, look.
Yeah, you can still do social media from prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, in general, there tends to be general trends. So LinkedIn tends to be a lot more B2B and corporate leaning. So that would be if you're like in tech or if you're like in a consultant, that you'd be in that space. I find more visual content tends to be either Instagram or Pinterest. And then probably like an older demographic skew now is Facebook. And then a good kind of capture all you probably get most people in some shape or form is then your Instagram. So
that just hurts when you just said the older people on Facebook. Like that just hurt me. I just feel called out right there on that.
Young as you feel, Jason.
So I mean,
my feelings got hurt on that one. Okay, so all right, so thank you for that. That was valuable. So the next question I had, you were talking about expectations and you said, months and even years versus days or weeks. Now, talk to me about this though from a practical perspective, because like as a business owner, I'm always trying to figure out if what I'm doing is working, right? Like, am I doing the right thing? Number one, and how do I know if it's successful? And so when you're faced with a situation where it could take you months or even years to get a sizable return on this, like what kind of advice do you have for people in terms of tracking this? Like what should we be looking at? And what kinds of trends should we be, caring about, and which ones should we kind of like, I've heard the term like vanity metrics, for instance. Talk to me about how you measure whether this is going well or not going well.
Yeah, great question. So they'll tend to be early indicators. So a main one is impressions, which is ultimately number of views and how many people did that post get in front of who don't follow you yet. So that tends to be a good indicator of seeing like, okay, is this being deemed good quality content by the platform? And therefore they're pushing it in front of more people. So impressions is one. Then if we're talking things a bit more qualitative, then I'd say comments, and also what are people commenting? Like, are they finding it useful? Are they resonating? Are they sharing their ideas? Another relatively recent shift in the last 6 to 12 months is rather than likes being as important, I'd actually say saves and shares are being prioritized in the algorithm now. So here's your post so valuable that people are deciding, actually, I want to share this to my friend, or this is so useful, I'm going to save this for later. That's now being is more likely to indicate a good quality content from the algorithm's perspective versus just a like.
I was going to say,
top end of the funnel. Yeah, go on.
Well, and so what I'm thinking as you're talking is like, does it really all come down? Like, for instance, if you have great content, and I'd like you to really describe very clearly what that is, because some people may struggle with what that is. Is it being eloquent? Is it a talking about a pain point? Or, what are some guidelines for actually, as much as you're able to, quantifying great content? But is that really the thing? I mean, I shouldn't say the thing, because of course you mentioned consistency too. But like, if you have great content, will that by nature increase impressions and increase shares and increase engagement?
If you're engaging as well.
Okay.
You'd need to either engage and or boost the post.
Okay. So is it possible that you could have great content and you just still wouldn't get a lot of impressions?
If you're not engaging, very possible. Yeah.
And so am I thinking about it correctly, where like impressions is the upstream metric that kind of like, if you don't have impressions, you're dead in the water on all the other ones as well? Or is that not true?
That's right. Because like if you're not getting in front of people, then you're probably not going to get any of the other stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So that's something that I think is really valuable in considering. And I'm also thinking, for engagement, asking like, hey, if you like this, leave a comment. Let's have a discussion. Or I guess, prompting some sort of call to action, which kind of gets me into discussion. Like, what is some good content? And do you have tips for people in creating content that, and I know it's going to be a little bit variable depending on your business, but do you have any like tips on that, like very tactically speaking, of what that could look like?
Yep. So if we're talking tactical, the popular framework that right now, and as I say it, and you look on your Instagram or your Facebook or social media, you just see it everywhere. What works is hook, problem, story, solution. In general, that tends to be the format. So the hook will be how I made 50,000 USD in 3 months, or how I finally lost this amount of weight in a couple weeks, right? It's that first 3 seconds as the hook, because if you don't grab their attention at the start, they're going to keep scrolling and they're not going to watch it. Then you've got the good hooks actually kind of tell you the problem at the same time. So like how I went from broke to 50,000, then he or she will like give that mechanism of how they solved that solution, the story, how they overcame that. And then the end bit is then a call to action, which is then, if you found that interesting, follow me for more, view my other content, comment if you have any questions, etc. So you'll find it's a hook, story, call to action. And a lot of the best content will follow that formula.
Got it, man. That's gold. Thank you for that. So there's a lot to consider here for someone that's aspiring to get more involved as a social media presence. Talk to me about options that people have. Like, so someone can do this on their own. They can, I guess, hire a VA. They can hire someone in like they could do it themselves as a business owner. They could hire somebody in house. They have this VA. Talk to me about the options that people have and enlisting help from others or doing it themselves, and how these kind of stack up against each other with some of the bigs and pros and cons, and some of the things that you've seen with business owners and your experience.
Yeah. So I've seen do it yourself is one option, right? Of doing it in-house. I think what tends to happen is people have the best intentions, but life gets in the way, it gets sidetracked, and before they know it, they've posted like 3 times in the year. I have seen that work better if you're at the size of business where you can give it to an employee to help you with. But I've also seen that sometimes if it's just side of the desk, they never really give that full commitment, but it can work perhaps if you put some parameters around it. And of course, the main benefit is it's next to free as well. So that's the DIY option. The other one is VA, just like a virtual assistant. I have seen this can work really well, but the challenge people have is just getting good quality control. So when it goes well, it's probably one of your best kind of bang for buck, but then it's a struggle to get that quality control. And if you're new to social media, what I tend to see businesses struggle with is it's hard to coach, correct, and guide someone if this is also relatively new for yourself as well. But if you know enough to be dangerous, then that can be an option. The other one, and just pans out, this is my biased opinion as well, so full disclaimer there, is you've got your kind of small kind of boutique agency. And if you're on a budget, but you actually want some good leverage, this is a kind of reasonable option. Because what you can do is you can tap into someone else's expertise who's already hired the people for you, has already vetted, has a pool of clients and data set to help you achieve your goals. But the con with this is quality really varies. Like you've got some boutique agencies who are solid and really know what they're doing, and then you've got people who've just been doing it a few weeks and a month, and it's a bit variable. And then I'll go into the large agencies. These are like they'll have like Coca-Cola and Pepsi as clients, right? And it's like if you've got in the tens of thousands range and you want to move quickly, that's also an option as well. Whoever you're speaking to, what I've found as like a good parameter of checking who's taking that craft seriously versus just getting by is to ask people, how do they share your social media credentials with them? Because that will tell you how much kind of thought and craft they've put into it. What you'll tend to get is things like, oh, just email it to me, WhatsApp, SMS, just quite informal. But really what you want to be reassured and to hear is things like, I use Leadsy, which is like a third-party tool that allows you to get third-party access without seeing a username or password. Things like Bitwarden, which is similar to like LastPass, that's more kind of known. And that just means you can get access to the codes and everything you need without also having any kind of security concerns.
So thank you for that, man. So a couple things that you said. First thing is, if you're doing it in-house, you said like it's free, but I would argue that perhaps it could be one of the most expensive ways to do it, because not only are you missing out on the things that you could be accomplishing, but you're stuck in the learning curve and you're using bandwidth from the business perhaps that could be spent making money somewhere else. And so, I'm not sure, we think of it as free, but it actually could be one of the more expensive versions or alternatives rather of getting this done. And, and in full disclosure, we work together for Life and Air stuff. And I couldn't imagine having to, because, my job right now is basically creating content and I hand it off to you. I couldn't imagine trying to become an expert at all of the other things involved in this. And we didn't even get into the nuts and bolts of like, hey, you got keywords and descriptors and hashtags and like all these, SEO, there's a lot more that goes into it than we've discussed. And so, I really think that for most people, it's probably something they want to get at, at least to start off with somebody with some expertise, but it also can be intimidating. And so you gave a great question there on how you share, passwords and things like that. Are there any other questions though, or things that people could ask potential businesses or VAs to get a better, like, are you just asking for, hey, who else have you worked with? Show me some posts, show me some results. Like, I don't, what else, how else can you screen some people if you're going to really go ahead and hire somebody? Do you have any other, tips or suggestions on that?
The best one, so security question I've already shared. And then the
Yep.
second one is, can I speak to one of your clients? Because that will just tell you everything you need to know. If they get defensive, like, oh, actually NDAs, or then it probably tells you that not doing as good of a job. But if they really kind of are comfortable in that craft and they've built great relationships, it would not be a struggle to get someone to speak to them. So that's probably a pretty easy one, is to say, can I speak to someone?
Okay. Do you think they should ask to speak to more than one though? Because I always, in the back of my head, I'm always like, man, they're picking their best one. Like this is their, this is that one person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, valid. You can ask to speak to multiple for sure. Also just ask them to share profiles of social media networks they're working on, right? Because then you can track back and go through the record and think, okay, does this content look good? Have they done a good job there? And you get versus, because anyone can do like a portfolio, right? Where it all looks polished and well put together, but actually someone who just says, here's my social profile, look through, that also gives you a good indicator too.
Dude, that's super valuable. I really appreciate you sharing that. And this is something that, of course, hiring anybody can be daunting. And so you've given some really, really good tips on how to kind of screen somebody on this and the pros and cons of each different option. I'll tell you, man, the whole social media thing is just, I believe, really is important. And I've just seen this, magnified so much in the past year or two where, I think it's important for business to kind of you have to have an online presence. You can't just have a website anymore and expect people to go there. And like social media is where people are hanging out. And so I think, like we talked about, the businesses that would benefit from it would really do themselves a great service by getting more involved with this. You've given some great tips, some great strategies and content. If someone wants to work with somebody, and maybe you in particular, how would they reach out to you, and how do they learn more about your services?
Yeah, so you can just email me. It's you can see my name here on the screen, but Heri, Heri at Apavale, APAVALE.com. And yeah, I'll be happy to help. No kind of like pushy hard sell. If you're just actually, Heri, I'm in early days of considering options. Can you give me some kind of things to consider? I'm happy to help with that. Selfishly, I actually find those conversations really useful, because I've had gems before of people telling me like, oh, like Heri, I'm speaking to someone else and they're less experienced than you, but they're charging more. And I'm like, oh, all right, then I'm probably have some upsell value there. So yeah, happy to help with any questions.
Awesome, man. And so you've created a document that has summarized some of the things we've talked about in the podcast. We will put this in the show notes. And so you'll have access to that as well. So if you want a written format of some of the main points that Heri gave, which is gold, then go ahead and you can download that or get access to that for yourself. It's just a Google Doc. So you can just pull that right up and use that for yourself. Heri, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thanks so much for sharing your expertise, and I really appreciate your heart for helping business owners become more visible, more effective, and more profitable in their businesses through social media marketing.
You're more than welcome. Thanks for having me.
Man, I'll tell you, I have a love-hate relationship with social media because, we're working with Heri, and we're only a couple months in, but I have it's really made me take a different perspective on how important this is. And really, like I mentioned in the episode, dude, Life in Air has thrived as a result in the past solely of word of mouth referrals, speaking to live groups, and we have not embraced social media. So we're kind of behind the eight ball. So, I wish I had this discussion with Heri like 2 years ago.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. What you've learned the last 2 months?
In the last 2 months, I've learned that I I have
Face
to
that
approach.
can be, actually made good, face that make good on social media.
Well, man, here's the truth. Here's the truth of what I've realized. So, first thing is, I am not naturally good on camera, and I'll make like a 1 minute video, dude, and it'll take me like literally 10 takes
Yeah.
to say it perfectly. And I know we talked about authenticity in the episode, but I also don't want to be stuttering, and you have to get to the point quickly, and I can kind of meander and not really get right to the point. So this is a learning curve for me. And what I've learned is like I have to be willing to suck when you start. Like, and I've done speaking from stage and stuff, but it's different. It is, and it's not that I have a problem talking to the camera, but like you have to learn to be succinct, and you have to learn to like get to the point. When you and I do with a Get a Life Getaway or a Business Builder workshop, I don't have 1 minute that I have to nail. Like I can
3 days.
say things a little bit more like casually, and it's a little bit easier. But so one thing I've learned is like I have to just embrace the suck, dude. Like just do it anyway, and don't worry about being perfect, and get it out there. The other thing I've realized for myself is really just making it part of my daily, not daily efforts, but like making it a priority for me. And so like, we tend to look at things in business as like, hey, what's closest to the money, and what are the things that I can, really work on now that are going to impact the business in a big way. But I think this to me feels like it's like a slow burn. It's almost like your health. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you don't go to the gym one day, you're not going to recognize it, or realize it. But if you don't go for 3 years, you're going to realize it. And so like this focus on social media marketing has really kind of just instilled a long-term framework for me and a long-term perspective that I believe is valuable, and will help the business long-term. And I think we just, and I'm kind of mad at myself, frankly. It's taken me so long to come around on this. I was also afraid of putting myself out there. I shared this in one of my social media posts where I talk about like, I was afraid of the commitment of one more thing to do. I was afraid of coming up with content. I was afraid of, bumbling my way through it and nobody watching it. And guys, guess what? All of those things are happening. Like
and nobody's watching it.
Dude, really, literally, like some of my videos have like 10 views. And the way I'm thinking about it is like, you know what? I've flown out to speak to groups where there's been 20 people in a room, and here I am. If I get 20 views on a video, I look at it as a failure. But really, what it is like, hey, I still got to give one little nugget of value to somebody. 20 people. Like, and it took me 1 minute. And when I go out and speak to a room, that moment is gone. But now, when I put it online, like that 20 views can turn into 400 over a year. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I know. I think it's a good couple of things that I've heard from you, share. It's a good analogy of the gym, right? Because you don't build a muscle in one session. I think it's a consistency thing. And we didn't talk too much about this consistency. We talked about think of months as opposed to days. But I think this is a big thing in consistency. And I've struggled in my own kind of a thing to being consistent because, we have so many things in our business that we're looking from the perspective and the ROI, right? So listen, if I go and have this conversation and, in this conversation, I'm going to close the sale, that gives me an ROI as opposed to me being on social media and taking months, right? So, but I think there is a wrong way of looking from that perspective and what you just talked about of consistency and looking from analogy as a gym and, 10 views in the first video. Listen, that's a good practice. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I don't know if you remember when we first started events and what was it, me and you in 2015, 16? I think I'm glad that people didn't come and see us.
Dude, we're awful, right?
Yeah.
Well, dude, and listen, and the other thing, like, and I want to, so for me, here's another perspective is like, I look at some of the people that I follow on YouTube and they are so good. And I'm comparing myself to them. And meanwhile, I'm comparing myself to them in this present moment. And somehow my brain forgets. And by the way, these people clearly talk about this openly. They're like, you're forgetting, I've been doing this for 8 years, for 10 years, for 15 years. And you're looking at your month 2 to my 15 years. Like, really? Yeah. Like, but our brains don't make that association. And we're worried about like, what if people, I don't want people to look at me and think I suck and then they're not going to follow me. And then my life's going to be over. And this is going to, like, we make all these things up in our head, like that can keep us from just putting ourselves out there. And dude, here's another thing too, is he mentioned this, is like, I'm kind of a private person. And I don't like sharing, things. I'm not putting and I got to get over that, because here's one thing I recognize, man. I had a discussion with my buddy Greg, and he's like, dude, he's like, do you believe in what you offer and like life and air? And I'm like, yeah, of course. He's like, well, if you don't share that with people, like imagine having something super valuable and that you could help people with and not telling them about it. Like, that'd be kind of crappy. Like,
Yeah,
and so you got to get over
you know?
your own thing and share yourself. If you truly believe in what you offer, I don't care if you're a plumbing company, I don't care if you're a landscaping company or if you're a bookkeeper or whatever it is. Like, if you really do a great job with something and really help people, like you're hurting people by not getting out of your own way and putting yourself out there.
Yeah, it's a good way of thinking too. I would say this, if you're in a business of whether it's a service or a product, think about it this way. You're probably not creating a product or service that is, you're proud of it, right? You want to do it. So I think that when you start talking on the videos and, you start talking how great this plumbing business that I have and what I'm actually doing. And, this one lady called me and she was panicking, and I went over there and then I helped her out. And you talk from that perspective, all of a sudden that passion maybe shows up, that engagement kind of a thing that we talked about a little bit on this podcast shows up. And I think that's what people really buy, connect with and want to reach out and have a conversation with, because, that's, I think, in whatever business, that actually helps you stand out. So I would encourage you to go out there and start posting any kind of videos from that, what we just talked this podcast, and look from that consistency into months as opposed to hours and days, and you might be surprised what kind of success you might have in your business.
Yeah, man, totally. Yeah. Great episode, great reminder for myself, as well as like kind of things I need to look at and the perspective that I need to embrace as well.
Yeah, man.
Cool. Listen, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We hope you got something out of it. We hope you do something with it, right? This is the core message about life and air, is like, at some point you got to do something. It can't just be information. It's not just entertainment.
Right.
Right. But I hope this is something that's practically usable by you. If you liked it, leave us a like, leave us a comment, share this with somebody. Let us know that we're on the right track here for you, because our ultimate goal is to help you create an amazing life and a great business. We'll see you next week, everyone. Take care.